They said I was a failure, that I'd never amount to anything. They laughed at me behind my back and sometimes right to my face. But last weekend, my sister's drill sergeant saw me at a family cookout and froze. He turned, saluted, and shouted loud enough for the whole backyard to hear, "General? Ma'am." Yeah, you heard that right. If you want to hear how I got from being the loser of the family to a full-blown general with enough power to make my sister and parents' mouths drop open in shock, then listen close. And if you've ever been underestimated, ignored, or pushed aside, this one's for you. Drop a comment, hit like, but don't subscribe. We don't want them knowing what's coming next. Let's get into it. My name's Candace. I'm 32 years old now. And this story's been building since I was 14. That's when my life started heading in a direction no one expected. Not even me. My family lives in a dusty little suburb called Rock Hollow Heights, barely on the map, and definitely not known for producing anyone important. My parents, Randy and Joyce, ran a small pawn shop downtown. They always made sure my sister, Rachel, had everything she needed: piano lessons, shiny new shoes, school field trips, even her own car at 16. Me, I was the quiet one. I liked reading, staying in my room, and asking too many questions. That bugged them. A lot. "You don't want to go to prom?" Mom asked me once like I had just grown 3 heads. "You're going to regret not having memories like Rachel does." "I don't care about dancing," I said. "I care about flying planes." They both laughed. Dad actually spit out his coffee. "Planes," he chuckled. "You think you're going to be a pilot? Maybe in a video game." They never believed in me, and after a while, I stopped trying to make them. Rachel? Oh, she soaked up the attention. She was loud, pretty, popular, and obsessed with being seen. Her dream was to be a TV host. When she got into a community college, the whole family threw a barbecue. When I got accepted into the Air Force Academy, they forgot to mention it at Sunday dinner. No cake, no card. "No, we're proud of you." Just silence. So I left, quietly. No big send-off, no hugs. I packed my second-hand duffel bag, called a cab, and headed to the airport. As we drove off, I saw my parents setting up lawn chairs for Rachel's good luck on finals party. She was failing most of her classes at that point, but that didn't matter to them. The academy was hard. I'm not gonna lie. It broke me down, built me back up, then broke me again. But I didn't quit. I woke up before dawn every day, trained in the cold, studied till my eyes burned. I failed my flight sim test 3 times in a row, and still I didn't quit. Eventually I started climbing. By the time I was 25, I was flying combat missions overseas. By 28, I was leading a team. And at 30, I earned a rank that only a tiny % of officers ever reach: Brigadier General. But I didn't tell my family. Why? Because they didn't care when I was chasing my dream. They don't get to celebrate now that I've caught it. Over the years, I showed up at holidays, mostly out of guilt. I'd bring gifts they didn't appreciate. I'd offer help they didn't want. Rachel would laugh at my boring life in uniforms. She was living with her 3rd boyfriend by then, and had just started dating a guy she said was a big deal, some ex-military trainer named Darren. She claimed he could get her into a TV gig by hooking her up with some veterans charity PR. "He trains new Army kids," she bragged. "Tough as nails. You'd probably cry if you met him, Candy." Candy. That's what she called me, like I was still 10. I smiled and nodded. I knew Darren's type. He wasn't a real soldier, just one of those loud guys who pretended he had more power than he did. Still, I kept my mouth shut. The truth? The truth was Darren would have to salute me if he ever saw me in uniform. But the moment hadn't come yet. It did, though, and oh, when it did, it was worth every eye roll, every ignored birthday, every cheap Christmas gift they gave me because they thought I didn't care about fashion anyway. It was at Rachel's engagement party. She was marrying Darren, the guy who'd supposedly fix her life. They held the party in our parents' backyard with plastic tablecloths, red Solo cups, and a karaoke machine that kept glitching. Rachel wore a tight red dress. Darren wore sunglasses, even though it was evening. I didn't want to go, but Mom begged. "Just show your face," she said. "Rachel says she wants her whole family there. You don't have to stay long." I gave in. I wore a plain gray hoodie, jeans, and sneakers. No makeup. My hair in a bun. I looked like any other boring sister showing up out of duty. When I arrived, no one even greeted me. Dad was on the grill, burning hot dogs. Mom was cutting cake. Rachel was taking selfies. And Darren? Darren was barking orders at a group of his old army buddies near the fence. They were playing cornhole and drinking cheap beer. I slipped into a corner near the lemonade cooler and stayed quiet. Then Rachel spotted me. "Look who showed up," she called out loud. "It's General Candy here to inspect the troops." Laughter. I forced a smile. "She used to say she wanted to fly planes or be a spy or something," Rachel continued, rolling her eyes to the crowd. "Now she probably works in a basement somewhere filing tax forms." More laughter. I stayed quiet. I always stayed quiet. But then it happened. Darren stepped back from his group, looked over at me and froze. Like literally froze. His eyes went wide. His beer slipped from his hand and spilled down his khakis. One of his friends clapped him on the back, laughing, but Darren didn't move. Then he stepped forward, slowly. His eyes never left mine. He blinked twice, took off his sunglasses, and stared like he was seeing a ghost. The yard went quiet, and then, with his voice shaking just a little, he stood at attention and shouted, "General? Ma'am." Everyone turned. Silence. Rachel dropped her drink. Dad dropped a spatula. Mom's mouth fell open like a cartoon. I nodded. Just once. Then I walked past Rachel, past the stunned crowd, and went to the front of the house. I didn't say anything. I didn't need to. I was already planning my next move. But before I could even leave the party, I heard someone call my name, and it wasn't in a nice way. I turned to see Rachel storming after me, red in the face, shaking with anger. "You embarrassed me," she shouted, right in front of her guests. "You think you're better than me, just because some idiot saluted you." The party guests followed, some recording with their phones. Mom tried to stop her, but Rachel pushed past. "I bet you faked all this," she yelled. "You probably rented a uniform or tricked him into saying that." I stared at her, calm, silent. Then Rachel did something she would regret for a long time. She grabbed the front of my hoodie, yanked it down, and exposed the full dress uniform underneath. Metal bar, name tag, rank patch, and the silver eagle pin. The crowd gasped, and I didn't say a word, because the party was about to get a whole lot messier. Rachel's hand jerked back like she'd just touched a live wire. The second she saw my full uniform beneath the hoodie, the medals, the crisp name patch, the rank, her mouth flopped open, and for the first time in her life she had nothing to say. Behind her, the crowd gasped. "Wait, is that real?" someone whispered. Darren took a step back. He looked like he was about to salute again, but didn't know if he should. His army buddies? They suddenly stopped, laughing. One of them actually nudged him and mumbled, "Dude, you didn't say your fiancé's sister was a general." Rachel's face twisted. She looked like she'd bitten into something rotten. "You've been hiding this," she snapped. "Why didn't you tell anyone?" I raised an eyebrow. "Why would I?" "You think you're so cool now, don't you?" she hissed. "Coming in here, trying to steal the spotlight from my engagement party. I bet you wore that under your hoodie just to get attention." I shrugged. "I wore it because I just got off a base review. Flew in this morning. Didn't have time to change." A guy in the crowd actually said, "Whoa." Another whispered, "She flew in this morning? Like in a jet." I ignored them. My eyes were locked on Rachel's. Her fury wasn't just because she felt embarrassed. It was because she finally realized I had done something she could never fake, charm, or flirt her way into. I'd made it without their help, without their approval, without needing to be loud. But this wasn't the moment for revenge yet. No, not fully. I gave her a look that said we weren't done, not even close, and turned away again. That's when Mom caught up to me. "Candace," she said in a shaky voice. "Honey, why didn't you tell us?" I looked at her, and for a moment I saw her face soften, like she was realizing something. But I didn't let her off the hook that easy. "You didn't ask." She blinked. "Every time I came home, you were too busy planning Rachel's parties or fixing her messes. Nobody ever asked what I was doing. Nobody cared." Mom looked like she wanted to argue, but she didn't. She just stood there, lips pressed together, eyes heavy. Dad walked over, too. He rubbed the back of his neck like he was nervous. "So, this is real?" he asked, gesturing at the uniform. I turned slowly toward him. "You think I bought it at a costume shop?" He actually looked embarrassed, but he tried to laugh it off. "Well, what do you know? Guess you weren't wasting time after all." After all, that was how he saw it. All those years of brutal training, sleepless nights, deployments, and it was just not a waste. Not even "we're proud of you." Just not a waste. I walked to my car. Darren was still stiff as a board by the garage, eyes locked on me like I might throw handcuffs on him or something. I didn't look at him. Not yet. That part would come later. The party fizzled out after that. People left early. Rachel didn't even cut the cake. She slammed the door behind her and vanished into the house. I drove off and checked into a small hotel 2 towns over. I wasn't about to stay the night in my childhood bedroom where the wallpaper was still covered in Rachel's middle school trophies. The next morning, I woke up to a text from Mom. "Can we talk? Come for breakfast. Just us. Please, asterisk, asterisk." I didn't answer right away. I went for a walk instead. I needed time to think. I wasn't mad they never believed in me, not anymore. What hurt was how they never even tried to know me. I could have been anyone, a poet, an engineer, a truck driver, and they still would have only seen me as the quiet one. But something had shifted at that party. For the first time, they saw me not as Rachel's shadow, but as someone who outranked their expectations, someone they couldn't ignore anymore. Still, that didn't mean they deserved me back so easily. I showed up to the house around 10 a.m. Dad was gone. Rachel was still hiding. Just Mom and a pot of coffee on the counter. She sat at the old table, the one with scratches from when we were kids. She didn't speak right away. Neither did I. Finally, she said, "I'm sorry." That surprised me. "I should have paid more attention," she went on. "You were always so quiet. I thought you didn't need anything from us." I nodded slowly. "You were wrong." She wiped at her eyes. "I know. And I know saying sorry doesn't fix everything. But I want to understand you now. If you'll let me." It wasn't everything, but it was something. For the first time, I saw a flicker of the mother I used to imagine I had, the one who rooted for me, quietly, even if she didn't always show it. "I can't promise I'll come around often," I said. "But we can talk." She smiled. "That's all I want." But as I stood to leave, my phone buzzed. A message. From an unknown number. "This is Darren. Need to talk. It's about Rachel. Urgent. Asterisk, asterisk." I stared at it. Why would Darren, Rachel's drill sergeant fiancé, be texting me? I almost deleted it, but something felt off. Why not Rachel? Why not a call from Mom if it was truly important? I replied, "Why are you texting me?" The bubble popped up. "I need your help. Rachel's in trouble. And I think it's because of me. Asterisk, asterisk." My stomach dropped. Trouble? I called him immediately. He answered on the first ring. "Candace," he said, voice low and panicked. I didn't know who else to turn to. "I messed up. Bad. And your sister might be in real danger if we don't fix it." "What happened?" I demanded. He hesitated. "I'll explain everything," he said, "but not over the phone. Meet me at the old Rock Hollow airstrip. Noon. Come alone." I didn't like it. At all. But something in his voice told me it wasn't a game. It wasn't one of Rachel's dramas. This was serious, and deep down, I already had a feeling it would lead to the revenge I'd waited a lifetime to serve. Because if Rachel was in trouble because of Darren, and he wanted me, of all people, to help fix it, he had no idea who he was messing with. I slid my phone into my jacket pocket, turned to my mom, and said calmly, "I've got to go." She frowned. "Is everything okay?" I didn't answer, because I didn't know yet. All I knew was that noon was coming, and with it, a secret I never saw coming. The drive to Rock Hollow Airstrip felt longer than usual. The road stretched like a ribbon through the dry hills, sun glaring off my windshield, but my mind was already racing. Darren's voice echoed in my head, nervous, fast like a man on the edge. And Rachel, in danger. That made zero sense. She was always dramatic, yes, but actual danger? That wasn't her thing. I pulled into the crumbling parking lot. Weeds pushed through the concrete, and the chain-link fence around the old hangars looked like it hadn't been repaired in a decade. This place used to be used for training drills when I first enlisted. Now it was mostly forgotten by the town, except by people who didn't want to be seen. Darren was already there, pacing, wearing jeans and a hoodie like he was trying not to draw attention. His eyes lit up when he saw me, but there was no smile, just panic. He rushed over. "Thank God you came." I crossed my arms. "Talk. Fast." He glanced around, then gestured for us to sit on the back of his truck. I followed, but my hand stayed close to my phone, just in case. "It started a couple months ago," he began, "right after Rachel and I got engaged." I said nothing, just let him speak. She wanted everything to be big. Fancy ring, huge venue, bridal showers every weekend. I tried to keep up, but he stopped himself. "Turns out, some of that money I used for the ring wasn't mine to spend." I narrowed my eyes. "Define wasn't yours." He rubbed his face. "There's a military operations fund I was helping manage. I never planned to touch it, but I needed a down payment, and I figured I'd pay it back before the audit." "You stole military funds?" I said, my voice flat. I know it was stupid," he shouted. "But Rachel," she said, "we needed to make a statement, that this was going to be the event of the year. She even talked about getting a feature in one of those wedding magazines." I stared at him. This man was supposed to be a leader? A protector? "You think my sister's bridal dreams are good enough reason to commit fraud?" I asked, slowly, dangerously. Darren held up his hands. "Listen, I didn't think anyone would notice. But last week, the auditors started asking questions. I got scared. And then yesterday, I found out someone leaked it." I froze. "Leaked what?" "The paperwork. Screenshots. Transaction records. Everything. Someone sent it to the Army's Internal Investigation Board. Anonymous email. I think Rachel found out." That caught my attention. "She found out you stole funds," I said. "And now she's in trouble. How?" Darren swallowed. "Because when I told her, she lost it. Said if her reputation went down, mine would go down harder. Said she'd tell the board it was all my idea. That she thought I was paying for it with my own money. She already crafted this whole speech. She even rehearsed it last night. She was going to turn on me." I snorted. "Of course she was." "I panicked," he said. "Tried to delete the emails. Erase the paper trail. But now I think whoever leaked it, they're not just after me. This morning, Rachel got a call from a blocked number. They said, 'Hope you're ready to be famous for the wrong reasons.' Then they sent her a copy of the audit." Darren looked at me, like I was supposed to know what to do. "Rachel's freaking out," he said. "She thinks they're going to go public. Ruin her. She wanted to leave town. I convinced her to stay, but she's hiding at some Airbnb out near Lake Faro." I paused. "Why are you telling me this?" He looked down. "Because I need your help. If they come after her, or me, we could both get court-martialed. Dishonorably discharged. I'll lose everything, and so will she, I'm not here to protect your rank, I said, and Rachel made her bed. I'm not asking you to cover it up, he said quickly. Just help me figure out who leaked it. Someone from my unit? A hacker? A rival? I don't know. But if we find out, maybe we can shut this down before it gets worse. I stared at him. He didn't deserve my help. Rachel definitely didn't. But something about this stank worse than his story. Someone had sent the audit directly to the board. Not to a blog, not to social media, but the military board. That wasn't some petty revenge move. That was surgical. That was someone who wanted Darren to burn. And maybe Rachel too. I didn't say yes, but I didn't say no either. Text me the address, I said. I'll go talk to her. Darren looked relieved. Really? You'll? Don't thank me, I snapped. This isn't for you. He nodded, handed me a slip of paper with the address, and got in his truck. As I drove toward Lake Faro, my mind was spinning. Rachel was greedy, sure, and Darren was a fool. But someone else had lit the match, and now it was time to find out who was holding the gas can. The Airbnb was a fancy-looking place tucked behind some trees. One of those Lakeview houses that influencers used for fake vacation pics. I knocked on the door. No answer. I knocked again. Nothing. Rachel, I called out. It's me. Open up. Still nothing. I stepped back and looked around. There were 2 cars in the driveway. Hers and one I didn't recognize. A black sedan with tinted windows. Something felt off. I tried the door handle. It was unlocked. Slowly I stepped inside. Rachel. The house was quiet. Too quiet. My boots clicked against the hardwood. There was a half-eaten sandwich on the counter. A purse on the couch. Rachel's coat draped over the chair. But no sign of her. I stepped down the hall toward the bedroom. Then I saw it. A lamp knocked over. A glass shattered on the ground. And a note, crumpled, half-torn, on the bed. I picked it up. It said, "You should have kept your mouth shut." My pulse jumped. I scanned the room. No blood. No signs of forced entry. But Rachel was gone. Her phone, wallet still here. But not her. I backed out of the house and immediately called Darren. He answered on the first ring. "She's gone," I said. "The place is a mess." "What?" he shouted. "No. No way. She didn't just leave. She was taken." There was silence on the line. Then, slowly, he whispered, "Oh my God, this wasn't about the money." "What do you mean?" I think she told someone else. About something bigger. Something classified." I gripped the steering wheel. "What did she tell them, Darren?" "I don't know," he said. "But whoever took her, they're not just after revenge. They're sending a message." My jaw clenched. Because now, this wasn't just about family. This was war. The wind blew hard across Lake Faro as I stood outside the Airbnb, clutching the note in my hand. The words burned into my brain like they were carved in fire. You should have kept your mouth shut. I had read enough battlefield threats to know this wasn't some prank. Rachel hadn't staged this to win attention or sympathy. Someone had taken her, and they were making sure we knew it. I didn't waste time. I drove straight back into town, heart pounding. Darren was at his apartment, pacing so fast he nearly wore down the carpet. His face was pale, and he looked like he hadn't blinked since I left. I tossed the note on the table, recognized the handwriting. He stared at it, mouth trembling. "No, but it's real. I mean, this is really happening. You said Rachel might have told someone something bigger. What exactly are we talking about?" Darren glanced toward the window, then back at me. "A few months ago, she overheard me on a secure call about a surveillance mission in the Strait. Top-level intel. Not even all officers were cleared to know. She made some joke afterward about knowing government secrets. I thought she was kidding. My stomach dropped. And you didn't report it?" He shook his head. "She promised not to tell anyone. Swore on our mother's grave. I figured she just wanted to feel powerful." I pressed my palms to my temples. This was bad. This wasn't just a family mess anymore. This was a national security, Crisis, waiting to blow wide open. You don't know if she recorded the call. No, Darren whispered, but I wouldn't put it past her. I took a deep breath. All right, then I'm going to need access to your secure channels. Anything suspicious, any chatter. I can't just give you that, he said, wide-eyed. I leaned in. You're already up to your neck in stolen funds and a missing fiancé who may have leaked classified info. Unless you want to face a dishonorable discharge, a criminal trial, and probably federal prison, you're going to let me help. He hesitated, then nodded. We sat down and pulled up Darren's restricted logs on his laptop. He wasn't supposed to be accessing them outside a secured base, but I didn't care. This was bigger than regulations. There were pings, strange ones, from an IP that didn't match any of the internal users. It was masked, probably bouncing through 5 servers. But the timestamps were close to the moment when the audit files were leaked to the board. I leaned in. Who has access to these logs? Darren's mouth tightened. Only me. And one other guy, Lieutenant Avery Hill. Friend of yours? Old academy roommate. We served 2 tours together, but we've grown apart. I narrowed my eyes. Give me his address. Darren hesitated. You think it was him? I don't know, I said, standing, but I'm going to find out. By the time I got to Avery Hill's place, it was dark. He lived in a duplex on the edge of Brantville Heights, a quiet estate nobody talked about unless they were stuck living there. I knocked on his door. He opened it half an inch, just enough for one eye to show. Yeah. I kept it simple. Rachel is missing. He opened the door fully now. He was in sweatpants and a tank top, his frame wiry, his eyes sharp and suspicious. What do you mean missing? He asked. I didn't blink. I think someone took her. I also think you know who. Avery snorted. Why would I know that? Because you're the only other person with access to the logs that showed someone leaking audit files from Darren's system. And you had motive. He stepped onto the porch and pulled the door shut behind him. I didn't leak the audit. I raised an eyebrow. But you know who did? He hesitated. Just a moment. I saw traffic from another port, he said. One that bounced through a Russian proxy. I didn't say anything because I didn't want to get dragged into Darren's mess. This is already bigger than stolen funds, I said. There may be classified leaks involved. Rachel said too much to someone and now she's vanished. Avery's face turned grim. Look, I don't like the guy, but even I wouldn't let him crash and burn like this. There's a guy. He stopped himself. What guy? There's a contractor, he finally said. Private security. Used to run ops overseas. Name's Clint Maddox. He's been sniffing around base recently, asking questions, mostly about Darren and Rachel. Why? Word is Clint's got ties to a news syndicate. Underground stories, blackmail stuff. He sniffs out scandals and sells them. You think Rachel tried to sell him info? Avery nodded. If she felt backed into a corner, maybe. She always liked attention. Might have thought she was bulletproof. And now she's gone. Yeah, he said. And if Clint took her, he won't keep her alive unless he thinks she's still valuable. That was all I needed. I got the last known address Clint had rented under one of his aliases. A cabin halfway up Granger Ridge, surrounded by woods and cell-dead zones. I didn't waste time. By sunrise, I was driving up the mountain road in a borrowed Jeep. It bounced over gravel and sharp turns, but I kept going. The trees got denser, the air colder. Clint's cabin sat tucked behind a bend, barely visible from the road. I parked, killed the engine, and approached on foot. My training kicked in. Every step was calculated. I circled the perimeter. No movement inside, but there were fresh tire tracks, and a drone parked on the porch, still humming. I crept up to a window and peeked inside. There she was, Rachel, tied to a chair, eyes wide, mouth taped, and standing across from her, A man I assumed had to be Clint. Broad shoulders, faded cargo pants, long knife in his belt. He was talking on a satellite phone, pacing, irritated. I ducked, pulled my phone out. No signal. I would have to do this the old way. I snuck to the back door, picked the lock in under 15 seconds, and stepped in quietly. The house was small, 2 rooms, creaky floorboards. I moved silently. Then Rachel saw me. Her eyes went wide with panic. Clint turned. Too late. I charged him before he could grab the knife. He swung the phone like a club, but I ducked and landed a hard elbow into his ribs. He stumbled. I kicked the chair, knocking Rachel sideways, then tackled Clint into the wall. We fought hard. He was strong, but he wasn't trained like me. I swept his leg, sent him crashing into the floor, and slammed my boot into his hand before he could reach for the blade. He growled, eyes blazing. "You don't know what you did," he spat. I twisted his arm and pinned him. "I don't care," I snapped. "You don't kidnap my sister." He passed out after I landed the final blow. I rushed to Rachel, untied her. She sobbed, but I had no time for softness. "Can you walk?" She nodded. We slipped out the back and into the woods before anyone else could show up. I knew Clint wasn't working alone. A man like him always had backup. We hid in a hunter's blind until nightfall, then made our way back down to the road. Darren picked us up 2 miles from the ridge. Rachel sat in the back seat, silent, shaking. I finally turned and said, "You're going to tell me everything, every single thing you said to him, every file, every recording, because now, this is no longer just about you. This is about the country, and you better pray that you haven't put something worse in motion." Rachel looked like a ghost, and for the first time in her life, she said the words I never thought I'd hear. "I'm sorry, but the damage? It was already done." And the next morning, when I reported to base, walking into a meeting I didn't know was being held, all the top ranks standing at attention, my boots hit the floor harder than ever. Then a voice at the end of the hall said, "General? Ma'am." All eyes turned. It was my sister's drill sergeant, and his face went pale. He didn't know. They didn't know, not until that moment, that I outranked them all. Silence filled the hallway like a vacuum. The drill sergeant, stocky, red-faced, and always shouting at someone, stood frozen. He had barked at me less than a week ago during Family Day, made some snide remark about not everyone's cut out for greatness, not knowing he was tossing jabs at a decorated officer. But now, with one word, "General," he realized everything. The other officers at the table stood quickly. A few saluted. One fumbled his coffee. My boots clicked loudly as I approached the briefing room, and the tension thickened. I didn't look at the drill sergeant again. He had served his purpose. His shame would travel faster than wildfire through the ranks. And my family? They still didn't know. They were probably back at the rental house in Valley Pines, still thinking I was the failure who couldn't hold down a steady job, still waiting to see if Rachel would give an official statement about her kidnapping for her social media, still thinking they had something over me. But that day, at that meeting table, my real life unfolded. I was debriefed by General Rossner, a grizzled man with 50 years of secrets etched into his face. He didn't waste words. "We're escalating this. The Maddox contractor has connections we didn't know about. Foreign money. Alleged links to private data firms overseas. Whatever Rachel gave him, if it got transmitted, we've got a potential international breach." I didn't blink. I already checked her devices. She had a phone hidden in her boot, password protected. I seized it. There's no record of data transfer, but we'll need a forensic team to confirm. He nodded. "And the family?" "They still think I'm between jobs," I said. "Good," he muttered. "Let's keep it that way. We don't need press coverage, and we definitely don't need another social media stunt from your sister." "She's under guard," I confirmed. "I assigned 2 trusted men to keep her grounded. Make sure they don't fall for any sweet talk. We've seen how she can manipulate." I nodded. She won't fool them. After the meeting, I returned to my quarters and finally let the pressure drop off my shoulders. The uniform hung heavy on the hook by the door. My decorations, 3 rows deep, caught the fading light. Funny how my family never once asked what I did for a living. Not when I paid the bills quietly for Mom's medications. Not when I sent money to Rachel to help her get on her feet. They never asked because they didn't care enough to know. To them, I was just their awkward middle child. Quiet, boring, never married. A disappointment, but I was also the reason they still had their lives intact. And I wasn't done. Later that evening, I drove back to Valley Pines to pick up a few personal things I had left behind. As I parked in front of the house, I saw Rachel on the porch. She stood slowly, wrapped in a blanket, eyes hollow. "I didn't mean for it to go this far," she said as I approached. "I didn't think he'd actually take me. I thought he'd just scare you. You hired Clint Maddox." She looked away ashamed. I reached out to him through an old contact. I wanted to make Darren nervous. I wanted the inheritance story to go away, and I thought if I had leverage, I could control it. "You played a dangerous game," I said coldly, "and you almost lost your life." She stepped toward me, her voice breaking. "I didn't know who you were, okay? I thought you were always so quiet. Never showed off. I didn't think you had anything to show." I looked her dead in the eyes. "That's the difference between us, Rachel. You want to be seen. I want to be useful." Her lower lip trembled, but I didn't offer comfort. She had done enough damage. Inside, I grabbed the last of my belongings from the guest room. Darren passed me in the hall, avoiding eye contact. He hadn't spoken much since our return, but as I reached the door, he finally said, "Why didn't you tell us?" I paused. "Would you have treated me any better if I had?" He didn't answer. I left. 2 days later, back at base, the investigation took a sharp turn. Maddox, who had slipped out of custody during transport, resurfaced, but not how he expected. He sent a video message directly to me. The file came through a secure inbox, labeled with my birth name. No one but a few people in the department had access to it. The video played. Clint Maddox sat on a concrete bench in some unknown location. His face was bloodied, his arm in a sling, but his eyes burned with defiance. "You think you won, General," he spat into the camera. "You don't even know what she gave me. Rachel, she only gave you what she thought I had. But I have something else, something you should be very afraid of." Then he smirked. "I know what happened in Demas Bay, and I know you were there." The screen cut out. My blood ran cold. Demas Bay, a black ops operation buried deep in sealed records. The kind that doesn't officially exist. The kind of mission you only talk about in rooms with no windows and guards at every exit. How did he know? I raced to my secured locker and pulled up the encrypted logs from that mission. The list of who was involved, who had access to those records, it was short. Extremely short. And someone must have sold the information. I called Rossner immediately. "We've got a deeper leak. Maddox has classified files from Demas Bay. Possibly footage." Rossner's voice went tight. "This goes higher than we thought. Permission to investigate with full clearance." I asked. "You've got it," he said, "and we'll need to bring your sister back in." I hung up and sat back in my chair. This wasn't just about revenge anymore. This was a full-blown conspiracy, and someone on the inside wanted me exposed. But they forgot one thing. You don't corner someone who's spent their life hiding in plain sight. You won't see them coming until it's far too late. The first place I went was the underground vault 2 levels beneath Command Room 9. I scanned my palm, pressed my security pin, and leaned in for the retinal confirmation. The heavy door groaned open, revealing rows of classified data lockers and a cold silence that never quite felt empty. Demas Bay was one of our darkest files because it involved a rescue mission that went completely off record. No names, No paper trail. Just a handful of agents who'd made it out alive and a world that would never know the cost of what we stopped. I wasn't just a name on the mission. I led it. And now Clint Maddox claimed he had footage. The terminal beeped as I keyed in the access codes. Then I scrolled through the archived communications. Nothing had been touched in over a year. But then in the most recent logs there it was, a file tag Mirage downloaded 3 weeks ago. 3 weeks. Exactly when Rachel went missing. I stared at the log, my jaw clenching. She hadn't just been a pawn in Maddox's plan. She'd been the bait. Whether she knew it or not, he had used her to get to me. Rossner was right. This was bigger than any family drama. This was a threat to national security. I left the vault and contacted Command Intelligence. I need a full trace on all who accessed Project Mirage in the last 6 months. Cross-reference with Maddox's known aliases and encrypted networks. The analyst on the other end, a sharp tech named Kyle, responded quickly. Yes, ma'am. I'll have results in 2 hours. As I exited the building, my phone buzzed. Unknown number. I answered, ready for anything. But the voice on the other end made my blood freeze. It was Rachel. Clint just called me, she said, her voice trembling. He says he wants to meet. He told me to come alone. That if I brought anyone, he'd release the footage. I held back a curse. Where does he want to meet? She hesitated. The old train yard, near Bellriver Station. Tomorrow night. Bellriver was a ghost station now. Shut down after a fire 2 years ago. No power. No cameras. Perfect for an ambush. Rachel, listen to me, I said carefully. Don't go. He's trying to lure someone out. Probably me. I know, she whispered. That's why I already told him yes. Rachel. I need to fix this, she cut me off. You saved my life. I owe you something. Just let me try. The line went dead. I stared at the phone, fists clenched. She was reckless, spoiled, and more self-centered than anyone I'd ever known. But deep down, maybe guilt had cracked something open in her. Maybe she wanted redemption. But I wasn't going to count on it. I assembled a quiet unit for agents I trusted with my life. No uniforms, no names, just skill and loyalty. We mapped the area, set up hidden surveillance points, and waited. Night fell. Fog rolled in off the tracks, swallowing the yard in a thick gray silence. Through binoculars, I watched Rachel arrive. She wore jeans and a hoodie, her arms crossed tight over her chest. No phone in sight. No backup. Maddox stepped out from one of the rusted train cars. He looked worse than before, bandaged face limping. But he held something in his hand. A flash drive. I zoomed in. It was labeled Damas. Rachel stood still. What do you want from me? She asked. Nothing, he replied, voice echoing through the yard. I want her. He turned his head and looked straight at one of our hidden cameras. That's when it hit me. He knew. He knew we'd be watching. He had baited me just like he had baited Rachel. He pulled something from his coat, a small detonator. I knew she wouldn't stay away, he said, smirking. And if I can't bury her with the truth, I'll bury her in flames. I shouted into the mic, move, now. My team sprang into action, but I was already out of cover and sprinting toward Rachel. A loud beep echoed through the air. The ground shook. Flames exploded from the back of the nearest train car. Rachel dropped, screaming. Maddox ran. I tackled him halfway across the gravel, my forearm slamming into his throat. He struggled beneath me. You think this ends with you? You're just another piece. You're part of the reason they're all dead. I didn't flinch. You made your choices. I made mine. He spat blood. You'll burn like the rest. My team closed in, cuffing him, dragging him back. Rachel sat against a metal post, clutching her ankle, tears streaking her face. I didn't know, she whispered. I swear, I didn't know what he really wanted. I knelt beside her, scanning for other injuries. He used you, like he uses everyone. But next time, Don't play with matches if you don't know how to put out the fire. She nodded slowly, finally silent. Back at base, Maddox was taken into black site custody. He wouldn't be heard from again. Not by the public, anyway. But the footage? The drive he brought? It was real. And it showed something we didn't expect. Not just me in Demas Bay, but someone else. Rossner. He'd been there. In the footage, he gave the order to strike, an order that resulted in an entire village being wiped out. Something I had thought was an accident of war was not, and I'd followed his command. My stomach twisted. I had to make a decision, stay loyal or expose the truth. Either way, the consequences would be massive. As I sat in the command office, the drive spinning slowly in my hand, the door opened behind me. It was Rossner. He didn't speak, just looked at me, then nodded toward the drive. You watched it? Yes, I replied. And I want your resignation. His eyes narrowed. I can destroy you. I stood tall. You already did. But now I'm taking back what's mine. He said nothing, just walked out. The next morning, I turned the footage in. Quietly, through the right chain of command. Rossner was gone within 72 hours. No explanation given to the press. But I knew. And now, so did those who mattered. A week later, I received a letter of promotion. 4 stars. Full honors. Another ceremony. This time, I didn't invite my family. But they came anyway. They sat quietly in the back row as I walked on stage. A sea of salutes greeting me. And the moment the commanding officer announced my new title, the room erupted. But nothing was louder than Rachel's whisper as she turned to Darren. Oh my God, she's a general. The drill sergeant sat behind them, white-faced, still unable to look me in the eyes. They finally knew, but it was too late. I didn't need their approval anymore. The only thing I ever needed was the truth, and now the world had it. The end.